Welcome to the Year 7 Writing Like a Scientist Screencast 2, which is on vocabulary selection. So, for this project, your vocabulary will be important, and this is because it's in the marking criteria. If you remember from lesson 5 with your science teachers, they gave you what we expect you to do. So we quickly look for vocabulary. If it's supporting, it's you using everyday non-scientific language. In other words, that's language you use with your friends. It's informal in style and, to be honest, probably a little bit simplistic. Where if we look at the exceeding end, is that you're using scientific vocabulary appropriately and with precision throughout your proposal. So we're really looking at a scale from how informal and everyday are you to are you writing in a more academic or sophisticated way using more scientific words. And this presentation is hopefully going to give you some ideas about how to do this. So in your essay or your proposal, you should really try to avoid words like good, bad, small, big, lots, thing, stuff, ugly or beauty, or any words like this. Because these words are too generic. And what I mean by generic is that they're very general. You can use them in lots of sentences. They're not very precise, and therefore they don't really tell us anything. So instead of using these types of words, this presentation is hopefully going to give you some ideas about how you can use language a little bit differently. So we could use a sentence, this sentence will be good because. Well, good, again, isn't very scientific and it's not very specific. So we could write the benefits of this project are. Benefits obviously mean the plus sides, why we should do it, what are the advantages. The advantages of this project are, or this project is of significance because. So now we've moved it away from saying the positives are significance, now we're meaning the importance of it. By using these expressions, we have made our work more specific and academic in style. It's much better than using the word good, and we're really giving the reader an idea of what we want to say. So on the flip side, instead of in terms of improved vocabulary selection, we want to avoid using things like lots because it's not very scientific and again it's informal in style. Now it's worth noting that for this particular project, we can't really specify how many species of animals and plants we might find because we're trying to discover it. We don't know what's there. That's why we're doing this expedition. So we can't give an exact number. Now, mostly in science, we want to be as precise and as exact as possible. But for this proposal, we need another expression which is talking about an amount we don't know because it's yet to be discovered. So one option would be there are numerous species that could be. Now, species is just a better word than animal. It's just a bit more scientific. So it's a better choice of scientific vocabulary. And numerous is a more academic word than lots. There are a variety of species that could be. Again, variety is much more sophisticated than saying lots. And there are multiple undiscovered species. And undiscovered is a good word because it means we don't know about them yet. Species is a better scientific word, and multiple is also much more academic. So by making these two simple changes to this sentence, we've already made it more academic in style. And in the blue box, it just summarizes everything that I've just said. There's a lot of stuff we need to take. Now, the higher up the school we go, teachers really dislike stuff and things being used because they're not specific. And usually we're using those words, it's a little bit lazy, and there's usually something much more precise that we can use. So, in this case, some of the equipment we need to take. So equipment is making it clear that these are useful things and useful machines or products that we need to be successful in our expedition. Some of the instruments we need to bring. Instruments would often be used for a particular purpose or for measuring something. And again, we're just making it that much more precise and directly linked to the topic. And this is what I mean, instead of saying everyday language, which stuff will be, we're using instrument, which is much more scientific and is much more precise to the actual case that we're talking about. Protective clothing we need to take is, so although to take is a little bit maybe a simplistic way of saying it, protective clothing is being very precise about the type of thing that we need to bring, and therefore it's more academic. Scientific vocabulary, you need to be careful that you're not using vocabulary which you don't understand. If a teacher later comes to you and says, "What does this word mean?" and you're like, I know what it was when I did it, but I don't know what it means now, you haven't learned it. It's probably an inappropriate word to use for this project. If you're going to use new scientific words, no problem. But make sure that you understand them and are able to explain that to your teacher. But instead of saying weather, which my mum and dad would say to me, climate, or talking specifically about temperatures would be a much better way of doing that. Instead of animals, we could use species. Wildlife, we could use habitats, environments, biomes. These words are much more scientific in nature. If we're talking about the amounts, in science we usually want to be as precise as possible. So using things like milliliters, millimeters, grams, kilograms, meters, centimeters, anything which is specific in terms of measurement is going to be something good to do. Instead of things, as we previously said, use instruments, tools, resources, materials. These words would just be, again, more scientific than using general everyday things. Studying something, that's okay, but research, data, findings, these are the words that you will find more often used in the scientific texts. And to find, which is a general verb, has a good meaning, it says what we want it to, but discovering, investigating, identifying are just that much more, again, related to science and more academic in style. So to summarize what we've talked about, we want to come away from using everyday generic words and we want to make them more specific to the topic that we're talking about. It is good to use scientific vocabulary as much as we can, but as I've previously said, don't use words which you don't understand or you don't know. If your teacher asks you to explain it, you must be able to do that. And you shouldn't change every single word of your writing because you think it will make it sound more complex and more academic. If you change too many words, your work's not going to flow well, and we want our work to flow. If our work doesn't flow, it's difficult for the reader to read it. So we need to be careful about which words that we're going to change to make more scientific. And that's where reading it with a friend or reading your report out loud to see if it sounds good when you read it is a good idea. So hopefully you now have some ideas about how you can enhance and upgrade your vocabulary to make it more fit for the purpose of our proposal. Thank you for listening.